What's up, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, and the broader markets. I'm also going to break down why the market sold off the way it did and what you should be watching for heading into tomorrow. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link that's down below or use my QR code right here to sign up. If you sign up for Moomoo with the link down below and deposit $100, you're going to get $20 of free Nvidia stock. If you deposit $2,000 or more, you're going to get $50 worth of NVIDIA. Deposits $10,000 to get $300 worth of the stock, or deposits $50,000 to get $1,000 of free NVIDIA. You're also going to qualify for an 8.1% APY on invested cash, and the offer ends very soon. So please check out my link down below to sign up. Anyways, for NIO, we have this head and shoulders like pattern. We got this sell up as you predicted. However, we're at this support near the $6 area, and I'm hoping we try to see a temporary rebound right here before possibly going lower off the head and shoulders. And the whole market took a big hit as we predicted yesterday because I mentioned that the government shutdown news at that point, the news about the government shutdown ending, that was essentially priced in. And once the news would come out, it would be like a buy the rumor, sold the news sort of event. On top of this, there was some negative news for NIO. NIO's William Lee, who is the CEO, came out and he said that the L80's launch window has shifted to next year because the factories are prioritizing the output of the fast-selling L90 SUV. They have delivered more than 10,000 units for 3 straight months of just the L90 alone. Once again, it's using up a lot of the battery supplies and the production capacities, and that is leading to some delays here and there. And that's the reason why we're seeing a sell-off in NIO. On top of this, despite that, they're still getting lots of exposure to CIIE. And overall, I still think that there is resilience in the overall company. But for the short term, there is some fear about what's going on with their production and also because of their margins. Mizuho remains neutral. And on top of this, the price price ratio is dropping, which is another sign that once again, NIO has been losing some strength compared to the markets. On top of this, Fridays tend to be green about 53% of the time, but we're seeing some weakness at least thus far. So that being said, why did the market sell off? Well, here's the thing. We didn't really get much data, and that's one of the most important things that I want you guys to remember. We're not getting the data, and that's really affecting the market's view on things. President Trump signed the agreement that is now going to fund the government up until January. That means that the market is looking at the government shutdown ending. However, that was already priced in. That's why the market started to dip. On top of this, the White House announced that much of the data involving inflation and the labor markets may never be released because of the shutdown. And what isn't too good is that much of the data so far from private sectors suggests that there's lots of weakness in the employment numbers, with our jobless claims hitting over like 11,000 per week. And then on top of this, there was some fear coming out from the Fed that it turns out we're not really getting much data, and that could once again affect the way in which the Fed goes about things. And Wall Street is now worried that this could decrease the odds of us getting some sort of cut because, first off, there are some fears that inflation is going up, the labor market is showing weakness, but we don't really have enough data right now. And then when it comes to the data that's coming out, much of it might not even be released according to the White House. And then on top of that, the data we have so far does still show weakness in the labor market, but many may argue it's not sufficient and that there's a decreased probability of us getting a Fed as a result. So now there's like a 50-50 chance of us getting a cut or not in December. That's part of why the market is selling off. For tomorrow, there's not really much for earnings. We just got Walt Disney, which had mixed earnings, but the share price went down overall because of them missing on their earnings. And besides that, let me just close that real quick. Sorry about that. Besides that, let me just call out that for the overall data, there's going to be a lot of puts expiring, which makes me suspect there could be some kind of like bounce coming, at least for the markets. And hopefully this helps NIO bounce near $6. Could we touch $6? It's possible, but we'll just have to see what happens after that, if we rebound for that 6.4 area or not. So watch that very closely. This also resembles a head and shoulders. So even if we do bounce near $6, it might just be a temporary move up before we continue to potentially dip again with this head and shoulders that's forming. So there might be a temporary bounce before we go lower. Same thing with SPY. We're near 672, which is where we have this resistance becoming support, and that's also where we bounced from previously. And because SPY is showing some weakness, there is still some more downside risk. Now, I would like to see us try to gap up and try to retest like 675 to 677. If we break that, we could try to go higher, but if we don't, it could just be another lower high rejection. This may continue to downtrend. We should bounce temporarily, but there could still be another rejection because we had this high up here. We came down, made a lower high, and we could just continue to reject. On the QQQ, the same thing is basically going on. We had a high here, we came down, made a lower high, and we just continued to reject. And we're going to have to see what happens as time goes on. The QQQ does have a big support near 605, so I do think that we came super close already, and we could be looking for a bounce between 608 to 605 back up to around the 610 to 612 area. And then we're going to see if we make another lower high. If we could take out 617, of course, we could bounce pretty big. But if we come short, we could still turn back down after that because this now looks like a slanted head and shoulders. And I think that there's still weakness on the QQQ. So there might be a temporary bounce tomorrow, and we'll see if it lasts. On the IWM, we're at support right now. There's like a double bottom. So we're going to see if we retest 238. On ES, we're testing this support at 6750. We're going to see if this holds. If not, we could dip more, but I think we bounce for 6780 to 6800 before we potentially turn lower. For NQ, we could be revisiting 25,200. We're going to see if we reject or not, so watch that very closely. On Bitcoin, we could be revisiting 100,000 to 101,000. Then we'll see if we turn down, so watch that very closely. On Tesla, I think that there's a lot of weakness in Tesla stock considering where it is right now. But I would like to see it bounce near here, see how we're trying to hold 400. That's a good sign. And this could attempt a rebound for 410 or into the low 400s before potentially going even lower. On Nvidia, we're on a downtrend now. It's been confirmed. We might try to rebound for essentially 188 to 190, but then we could reject one more time. On Aapl, we're showing some weakness. It's very flat right now, so it's not that bad. This is actually showing some strength compared to the market, but at the same time, there is weakness in terms of this trend because we are trending downwards. So it might dip a little bit more. It could retest 270 before it attempts to bounce. On other tickers such as Palantir, we're technically on a downtrend. It could be looking for a retest of 169 before it tries to rebound. AMD might be retesting 244 before it tries to bounce. Coinbase has a bullish divergence, so as long as we hold 280, we could rebound for 290 to 295, and then we'll see if you reject. There's also a divergence right here around on Amazon, so this might be retesting 241 to 244, and we'll see what happens as time goes on. Meta is also in the middle right here, so it could be looking for a rebound back up towards this 615 area, and we'll see what happens after that. Google could also retest 280 to 285, and we'll see if it rejects, but I do see some upside potential here for anything else. And Microsoft could also retest 506 before we end up turning lower, so watch that very closely for a temporary bounce. Looking at the VIX, we're going to see if this is a head and shoulders like pattern, if the VIX is about to get a big rejection, or if it comes down just temporarily to retest this trailing before it bounces again. Nothing is confirmed yet. But I do think it comes down a little bit. So for now, we're going to take it one move at a time. And it looks like the market might see a small bounce tomorrow. Then we're going to see if we get a rejection or not, but look for some temporary upside and we'll see how it goes. Same thing with NIO. We should retest the low $6 area before we try to bounce back up to like 6.5. And we'll see what happens after that if we get another rejection, because there is still a larger head and shoulders, which opens the door for more downside. Even if we bounce a bit and get back up to 6.5 to 6.61, we could touch those areas and reject again. That is a very, very strong possibility. With that being said, I thank you all so much for listening, and peace out.